This episode was originally published in June of 2024.
Saying of the day is that doubt kills more dreams than failure will. You go into things doubting it, boy, it really takes away your courage. And so I think you have to, when you're dreaming dreams, you got to visualize them. You got to think about them. Great athletes do that. They think about running that touchdown or scoring that winning basket, and they've done it a million times for each one time they do it on the court or in the field.
You made me think of your saying that you use at graduation, dream no little dreams.
Dream no little dreams, you know. If you dream little dreams, you know, that you just get confused and you get lost. And if you don't achieve them, then they're really small.
So can I ask you a quick question? When you
Sure.
were a young man driving a tractor in a field in Dimmitt, Texas, were you dreaming no little dreams? Did you dream to be a...
I dream big dreams. I also dreamed of getting off that tractor. I didn't know what was out there, but I knew there was something better. That was before you had cabs and tractors. So you were out, and if the wind was behind you and you were plowing, the dust would blow over you as you were going. When you were going into the wind, then the dust blew behind you is a lot better. But, you know, I ran back some kickoffs in the Cotton Bowl driving that tractor and scored some winning baskets for the Dimmitt Bobcats, did a few things like that. One of my dad's favorite saying, he was a cowboy out in West Texas and, you know, in the 1920s, was, "Hold her head up, Luke, I think she smells alfalfa." And that means stay focused, because if you've got a horse and you don't hold their head up and they get near alfalfa, then they'll go over and eat, and you'll have a tough time getting them turned around and getting them to do their work. Mm-hmm. And so that was an old saying, you know, it means stay focused. Hold her head up, Luke, I think she smells alfalfa. My grandkids always liked that when they thought that was funny.
And speaking of your grandkids, in today's world, it's tough to stay focused. Especially for young kids, there's a lot coming at them.
I think for young kids, and I'm talking about kids in middle school and high school and then in the 20s and even 30s, that it's hard to stay focused because there's so much information out there. It doesn't matter on the internet, on Facebook, on Instagram, you know, TikTok, Twitter, a lot of information.
And not all of it's true.
Very little of it's true. You know, you have to be careful about it. Somebody will say that they have some information. Say, "Where'd you get it?" And say, "The internet." Well, you can find anything you want to find on the internet. And so it doesn't matter.
And you said what? And you're not very. You once said the closer you are to the source or to the decision maker, the better you are. The internet's not very close.
No, the closer you are to the source of the information, the better your decisions will be. You took look at the war in Iraq, the Gulf War, that there was information that there was weapons of mass destruction that Saddam Hussein had, and that proved to be incorrect. If you go to the Vietnam War, the Gulf of Tonkin incident was that North Korea fired upon us, and the truth of the matter is they didn't. And the result of those two inaccurate informations were wars where a lot of people got killed.
Mm-hmm. With the Gulf War, no one's going to hold you to a number, but how many levels was it below Colin Powell or to the president?
You know, I've read different accounts, and some say it was 3, and some say as high as 11. And if you put 11 people together, and I do this in my classes sometimes, I'll put 11 people together, and I'll say something, I'll whisper something to one of them, they'll go, you know, the 11 people, the whole row in a class, and by the time you get the last information, it's nothing compared to what you started with. Mm-hmm. And so you have to be really careful on information in this day and time. And you don't have, you know, newspapers used to be such an accurate and pretty sound of accurate information, and yet they've cut the number of reporters so much. Dallas Morning News used to have over 10 reporters in Austin. Now they got maybe 1 or 2, and the other press, other members of the press, they don't have any, or if they do, it'll be one. And so and you don't have investigative reporters like you used to. Journalism has probably been changed more by the internet than any other profession. You don't have as many people writing on things where they're writing in depth. You have people that throw things out on the internet that may or may not be true, and every little site wants to be first to come out with some story, and they don't necessarily have the correct information. The number one item on libel and slander is New York Times versus Sullivan, and it's a case you had to prove malicious intent. I'm not so sure that won't be repealed sometime in the future. And that on the internet, I've always been one that believes you ought to be able to say anything you want to as long as you put your name and address down. Now, that'll change a lot of things, especially on bullying kids with anonymous sources, which is really despicable, and most times it's done by other kids. And you take a youngster that's 10, 11, 12, 15 years old, they're easily bullied, and if they've got the right family and right parents and good self-esteem, they can handle it and everything. But there've been kids that commit suicide. And so I think as parents you have to really know what your kids seeing on the internet, but also you need to know what they're saying and what they're posting. The job interviews. I had somebody not long ago, and they had on their Facebook, they had a FY, a politician's name. Now, whether I like or dislike a politician doesn't have anything to do with it. I'm not going to hire that person. If their judgment is to say that about anyone and post it on their Facebook, they don't have good judgment. So with young people, they've got to be careful. I can go on Twitter and follow someone, and I can tell you a lot about them in a pretty short period of time, what's important to them, what's not important. But you're going to be looked at closely when you go to get a job. And people posting pictures, that's absurd. Mm-hmm. That's going to be there forever. You can't say, well, I believe I'll take that down. Once they get out there, they're gone.
The internet is written in ink.
Yes.
You
can't you can't dissolve it.
Let's go back a little bit to the role of investigative journalism. How important is it in this country, and how good of a job is being done?
The job of being a reporter, an investigative reporter, is not what it used to be. Every regional newspaper would have some major story on Sunday morning, and you'd have in-depth investigation. And but now they've cut back. Newspapers don't have the strength they used to have, where they had so many reporters, good reporters that could dig into things and find out what was happening. And you just don't have that compared to what you used to. You'll have some, but most of the ones you have now are pretty slanted. They have their mind made up when they start a story on what they want it to say.
It seems like the endorsement of a major newspaper, Dallas Morning News, Houston Chronicle, doesn't really carry the weight in the political world that it used to either.
In political campaigns back in the 70s and 80s and even early 90s, you always wanted the endorsement of major newspapers. Now no one cares. Mm-hmm. The only time somebody will look at them will be when they're looking for a down ballot race, and they want to know something about a candidate, and they'll look at the endorsement of a major newspaper for something like Supreme Court or one of the judicial offices or the Railroad Commission, Land Commission, things like that. If you look what's happened in the confirmation process with judges, it's completely changed. And I think that goes back to when Judge Bork was appointed. Democrats went after him hard. Republicans fought back hard. And then Clarence Thomas was next up. And since then, it's been pretty well a blood sport on a lot of sides that when someone gets appointed. And It's a take no prisoners. Before it used to be, and Lindsey Graham from South Carolina said this, he voted for some of Obama's appointees and almost got beat over it. But he felt like at that time that if the president appointed somebody that was qualified, even though you disagreed with them, they won the election, they get to appoint who they wanted to appoint. And so that's the reason he took up for Kavanaugh so much. He said, that Trump had won, and he felt like that he ought to be able to appoint who he wanted to appoint, and that he had always felt like that in the past, and I think probably changed his mind going into the future, and it's more of a heads-on fight, party versus party. I don't think it's good for the country, but that's where we are right now in confirmation process.
Having watched the Kavanaugh hearings, it made me wonder who would want this? Who's squeaky clean enough to go in there and just sail on through?
Everyone's going to have their faults. Everyone's sinned, and there's that it's not going to be easy. But I think a lot of people run for office something, and they get down in the campaign. They think, "Boy, I wish I hadn't run." There was a guy, an older lawyer in Lubbock, Byron Chapel, told me one time. He said, "If I want to relive my past, that it was kind of sinful, I'm going to run for office because they'll bring it up and I get to enjoy it again."
When stuff like that happens for politicians or public people in the public, do you recommend just own it, end it, and move on?
Yeah, I've seen some times that it was, someone would have something happen to them. And we had a politician in Texas got a DWI one time, late at night, not good circumstances, and like 2 a.m. That same day at 10 o'clock the next morning, he went down and pled guilty. It was a one-day story, and that was it. Mm-hmm. There's others that something will come up, and they'll get into a fight, and it just goes on and on. We had a official here in Texas claim that she was Phi Beta Kappa, and that it made front page of the Dallas Morning News. The story did 18 out of 21 days. Mm-hmm. Well, it came out she wasn't Phi Beta Kappa. I think that, and she got defeated over it. I think that just killed your opportunities. And one of the senators from Connecticut came out that he was a decorated war veteran hero in Vietnam. Well, he wasn't. He never went. And if you claim something, you better be able to back it up in a campaign, because the opposition's going to, they're going to do their research and they're going to know if it's correct or not.
It almost seems crazy in today's world to think that a politician would make something up like being a Phi Beta Kappa or a war hero when they know it's not true.
I don't know what's going through their minds. I think the Phi Beta Kappa thing, somebody put it down one time, and she liked it so well she just never did correct it, and after about 4 or 5 years, it's you own it, mm-hmm. whether you started it or not. And I think that a lot of times you look at Governor Edwards over in Louisiana. He was running one of the many times that he ran, and someone got up before him to speak, and they said, "I'm running against a drunk, a compulsive gambler, and a womanizer." And when he got up to speak, he said, "I do not drink." That's all he said. and everybody laughed, and he went on about wrote it. He also one time said that he could beat his opponent. He was running against David Treen, and they were in the general election. He said, if I get caught, the only way I could lose is get caught with a dead woman or a live man in bed. and I mean, that's, in this day and time, somebody saying that would, but he said it then, and he got by with it. Louisiana politics is different. And boy, I mean, it's no holds barred. They go after it, and it's almost a blood sport.
Yeah, this isn't the first time you brought up Louisiana politics being a little bit different.
No, it's tough, And you better not run for office in Louisiana and think that you're going to get a free ride. You'll get a lot of things, but none of them will be free rides. There was a guy in Congress that was from Tennessee, and he got on Ag Committee. And after a while, he got a chance to get on Ways and Means Committee. He had to get off Ag Committee if he wanted to get on Ways and Means Committee. Well, at that time, about 90% of all legislation went through Ways and Means Committee, and it's still around 75%. All tax bills, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, trade, health care goes through Ways and Means Committee. And so he changed. He got on. He was on Ag Committee and got on Ways and Means, and his opponent ran against him and beat him and said he used to be on Ag Committee, but then he got on Ways and Means Committee, and they figure out the ways and the means to raise your taxes. And he tried to explain to everybody that's really a good committee, and you ought to be in it. Said the ways and the means to raise your taxes.
That's a winning line.
Yeah, it was. Mitch McConnell, the first time he ran, he was running against a senator that had missed quite a few votes and everything, and he ran an ad that showed dogs, hunting dogs, all over the Capitol, looking for the senator. Where's Senator Huddleston? Where is he? Where is he? And it kind of caught on, and people liked it, and you get hit with some ad like that, and if it catches on, goes viral, then you got some problems.
Speaking of mistakes in campaigns, the one that comes to mind, and I'm sure you remember well, Michael Dukakis in the tank.
Dukakis allowed someone to put a helmet on him, and he just looked goofy with that helmet. There's no other way you can see it. Mm-hmm. And people come up to you in the campaign, they want to put a hat on you or a cap or something, and you got to be careful. You say, well, let me look at that. Let me see. And you've got to have somebody traveling with you that'll be the one that will stop that. But that was a planned deal, was put him in that tank with a helmet, make him look tough, and it did not fit. No. There may be some people. Eisenhower in a tank would have made sense. Mm-hmm. It fit. But with Dukakis, his campaign went downhill after that.
Do you remember what you said when first time you saw it?
I remember I said, "Oh my God," and laughed, and I said, "I can guarantee he's going to get beat on that alone." It did not fit. Saying of the day: don't forget, doubt will kill more dreams than failure will. It's important.